You need to be driving this. You need to be the director of your movie, of your life, of your business, and then use AI wisely after you have first done a couple of things that we can talk about. You can use it to fact check. You can use it to research. You can use it to broadcast. But if you use AI and allow it to take over the leadership, it's going to be generic. That will not build a brand. That will destroy one.
What if you could learn directly from the people who've already built what you're chasing? Welcome to Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled, where founders, creators, and leaders reveal the real strategies behind building brands that last. This is your masterclass in real-world innovation. And now your host, A.D. Edwards.
Welcome to another episode of Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled. I'm your host, A.D. Edwards. Today's guest is Aurora Winter, entrepreneur, best-selling author, TV writer and producer, and founder. In this conversation, we're talking about reinvention, the power of communication, and building authority through story, and why being more human may be the smartest move in the age of AI. If you're new to the show, be sure to follow, subscribe, and rate Ingleside Reviews Innovators Unveiled. Now streaming on Bravehearts TV, YouTube, and all major podcast platforms. Aurora, welcome to the show.
It's great to be on the show with you, AD, and I look forward to helping our listeners turn their words into wealth.
Yes. So, you've written books. You have done many things. I've researched you. I like when I can read about individuals and read the books and also see other shows that you've been on. So, but before all the shows, before the book, before the business, who was Aurora Winter when no one was watching Aurora Winter?
Aurora Winter at age 9 was somebody crazy about books. I've been crazy about books ever since I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe from the Narnia series by C.S. Lewis. And my general personality is optimistic and a problem is just a challenge, an opportunity. Every problem is an opportunity to be resolved. And I think that attitude stands us all well in this age of change, in the age of AI with ChatGPT and Claude and other LLMs changing everything. I think it's good to have a playful attitude and lean into what's possible now that wasn't possible before.
Yeah, I agree. So when you look back, the 9 years old, 13 years old, and older, what experiences made you realize that words could be more than just informing people, but they also can move people?
Wow, so many different stories I could tell you. I think I want to just pause for a moment and appreciate C.S. Lewis. So, C.S. Lewis,
Okay.
I remember at 9 years old reaching up on tippy toes to get the last book in the Narnia series down from the library shelf. And the moment that my little 9-year-old hand touched the spine of that book, which was called The Last Battle, I felt this thrill, both of, oh my gosh, I get another book to read, but also anticipatory grief because it was the last book in the series.
Okay.
In that moment, I realized that writers are like wizards because just with ink on white paper, C.S. Lewis had created a portal for me into another world, a world that didn't exist, but he made it real to me. And so my little 9-year-old self thought, wow, writers are wizards. And I decided right then and there to do everything I could to become a word wizard like C.S. Lewis.
Yes. So you were moved and you said that this power can be used to move others.
Yeah.
But no, but next. No,
Yeah.
there's no but about that because I don't want to disregard what was said. But I do want to say that you expanded beyond books because at some point something drew you into television and media and what happened there and what did it teach you about attention, emotion, and persuasion?
I learned so much in film and television. I actually raised $5 million for a film and television company. We made 8 films. I worked as head of development for Canada's largest film and television production company and oversaw 250 hours of programming. I worked as a vice president of development for a family feature film company in Los Angeles. So I have a lot of film experience. And what I discovered through video and through film is that a movie or any good communication is an idea wrapped in an emotion.
Hmm.
So that left me with that fundamental truth. Like, if you have an idea and you just preach it at somebody, it's not going to land as well as if you can turn it into a story and get emotion. When we hear music or when we watch a great movie, we're not filtering it the same way through our intellectual capacity, which is no, 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 and skeptical. Instead, we're overwhelmed or really moved by the story and moved to take action or to feel something or to do something. And so, I mean, I loved doing that when I was in film and television. And today with AI video tools, I think all of a sudden video is possible, even on a
Hmm.
small business budget. So an idea wrapped in an emotion. That's what I learned in film and TV.
Being a person who started out as a writer and then moving into film and television, I want to ask you a question. I've had a discussion with a friend of mine. This was years ago, and he would prefer. This is about 20 years ago. He would prefer to get his news in the print form rather than on television.
Mm.
His claim is that he feels it's more pure in the print form, whereas the television, you lots of distractions and they do a lot of things for show and tell, shock and awe. What's your thought about a message, whether it's a story that can be conveyed through written form or through visual form on the film? Do you think there's a difference?
Oh, there's a huge difference, and I think it's not either or, but both and. So I
Okay.
think people are well served by having a book because a book is in print form and you get the opportunity to polish your words and make it just so. And there are fewer filters, or one can be more discerning reading a book, but it also takes a lot more time to read a whole book. Whereas video is memorable after 1.7 seconds. 1.7 seconds, according to meta research. So
Okay.
people are listening to us right now or watching us if they're on a video platform. Already, people have probably decided whether they like Aurora or whether they like AD, not because of the content, but because of our voice, the way you're looking at me with such attention. There's so many other bits of information coming from the auditory, the sound of my voice, the sound of your voice, the way that we look. And so I think people who want to change the world, people who want to make a difference would be well served to do both. And
Okay.
so, yes, if I just want information, I would rather read it because I could read and I can skip forward. But I end up listening to about 5 times more audiobooks than books that I read because I can do that while I'm driving, while I'm working out at the gym, and I like to hear the voice of the author, especially if it's a nonfiction book.
Mhm.
What about you? What do you find?
I I find that okay, so my son and I, we just did a Rich Dad Poor Dad. We're talking about financial matters. So we
Mhm.
broke it up into chapters, and every other week we met. And I I've read that book like 2 or 3 times, but every time I read it, it seemed like I missed something before. I was like, "Wow, I didn't catch this point." Of course, I'm in different times of my life when I read it, so it has different meanings in different areas. But what we did was we both read it and marked it up and listened at the same time. That was the first time I've done that before. Listened to the audiobook while I had it in my hand.
Yeah.
So
That's
it was
actually the
very
best way
impactful.
to go if you really want to learn and master the material. So I just recorded the audiobook for my new book, Turn Words into Wealth. And I think there is something in the audiobook. Well, firstly, I go off script and I give extra, things to the audiobook listeners, but you can hear my voice, you can hear my passion. I think people will really be more moved and engaged by the audiobook. But then on the other hand, if you want to take action, your print book, you can yellow highlight, you could dog ear the
Yes.
page, you can put your
Yes.
notes.
Yes.
So each one, has has powers, but combined is really your best bet. Yeah.
Yes. So, the show is about people reaching their goals, overcoming obstacles, encouraging individuals who are listening and who are watching that if they have a dream, you don't stop just be hit because you hit a bump. So here you are, you're author. You've talked about your background in film and television. I want you to tell us a little bit about how you were rejected, because I'm sure you were, Aurora,
Many times. Yes,
and
absolutely.
your mindset and how you came to bring things into fruition, because it's not a straight road for anyone. So tell us about you had the idea for a book, and tell us a little bit about that, and then tell us a little bit about television, the same things you had to overcome to get there.
Yeah, I like you. I like your comment. Like it sounds so clean. Oh, I pivoted, but it's always really messy. And I've pivoted multiple times. I've launched, different businesses. But I think the story that would be most interesting to share right now that would connect with the most of our audience is I'm a young widow. So when my husband died, he was 33 and I was 31 and our son was 4. So as you
Wow.
can probably imagine,
Wow.
that was a devastating
Yes.
period of time. He was my best friend, he was my business partner, and obviously he was the father of our 4-year-old son. At that time, I was actually writing screenplays and, I wrote the screenplay called Eli's Lesson. Anyway, that's another story. But what happened after my husband died, that was a moment to call it a pivot would be like to underestimate what a big change it was.
Yeah.
Um, I happened to have a friend in the film business, and he said, "Stop moping at home. You're coming to this film party." I'm like, "I don't want to." He's like, "Come on." Being mired in grief home alone is not good for you.
It's not
So
good. No.
he was a good friend. So he took me to this film party, and he was networking like Don Draper. And
Madmen. Madmen.
I did not feel like networking, so I sat at the bar and struck up a conversation with the person who seemed to have a similar idea of avoiding people. He asked me about the screenplay that I was writing, and I told him about it, all excited and, passionate, I lit up, and he's like, "Oh, would you like to go to the Banff Media Festival and represent the province of British Columbia?" And I'm like,
Wow.
"Who are you?" And he said that he was the head of BC Film. I had no idea. Wayne Stirloff was his name. So, the first moment, I was like, I could have said no or yes. I wanna draw like, I was not in my comfort zone. I didn't even know who I was pitching, which is probably why the pitch went so well. I chose to say yes. The next morning, the phone rang, and it was a documentary film producer. She said, "I hear you're going to represent the province at the Banff Media Festival. Do you mind if I follow you around with the documentary film crew?" Stakes have suddenly raised.
Right.
Again, I could have said no, but I said yes. I was, like, very stressed. So then I went to the Banff Film Festival, and it kinda got you sort of don't notice after a while when the film crew is following you around,
Really?
and yeah, after a while,
Okay.
after a couple of days, you just kinda don't notice anymore. Um, and so then I went in front of this audience of 600 people from Hollywood, from around the world, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, I can blow my entire reputation in the next few minutes." So my shoulder went into spasm, and I was like,
Yeah.
"No, is
Wow.
there a way to get out of this?" But no, I showed up, and the pitch went actually really well. And, it sparked a bidding war, and all kinds of people were bidding on my screenplay. Fortunately, my agent was there, so she was there to field offers, and it was a breakthrough, and that moment, I became famous I had my 15 minutes of fame, so to speak,
Yes.
and I realized in that moment that the right words to the right people at the right time can change your life forever. That one 20-minute pitch changed my life forever. I was a grieving widow, whimpering and sobbing at home alone, writing screenplays that nobody was reading because I wasn't pitching them to anybody. And because I said yes a couple of
Yes.
times, 3 times, I said yes. Um, great things happen. So I love everybody to be encouraged by this story that the right words at the right time to the right people can change your life forever. And instead of working at home alone all the time, if you get out there
You
and
gotta get
say
out there.
yes to
Network.
some things that might not be in your comfort zone. And because of that 20-minute pitch, I got offered a job. I worked in film and television. I had my like 15 minutes of fame. I was featured in Variety magazine and Hollywood Reporter. Later, I went to the Cannes Film Festival, to the Oscars, and later I met another person and we raised money to start a film and television production company with $5 million that we raised. So that one moment just changed the
Right.
trajectory of my life.
Have you heard the expression success is preparation meeting opportunity?
I love that. Yeah.
Because you were out, but you had something to pitch
Yes.
and you weren't self-doubting. You said go for it.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I was
beautiful.
kind of self-doubting, but I did go for it.
Well, you said yes because a lot of people might, well, I'm not ready yet. I don't have this and say no.
Yeah.
And they miss the you what do you I've always I've always been told at a young age, if you never ask, it's an automatic no.
It's
So
so
you have
true.
to, you're sure I can do it.
Yeah.
So that was great. That's awesome.
That was great.
You saw a need to reinvent yourself, but doing so is not always free. There's a cost. What did reinvention cost you emotionally, mentally, and professionally that people on the outside may never fully see?
Well, I've reinvented myself more than one time. So I think the if we wanna just take that particular example, as a result of that, my screenplays got optioned. I was offered the position in Toronto, Canada, and so I moved from Vancouver, BC, Canada, to Toronto with a young boy
Mhm.
who was still devastated from the death of his father.
Yes.
So, while that was a huge breakthrough for my career, I was like, I didn't have a husband, I didn't have a wife or anything, and I was sort of expected to work 80 hours a week. So that was difficult, yes, although it was a huge breakthrough.
Mhm.
It was very helpful because if you're grieving and staying home alone and you don't have a business, I didn't have a degree, I didn't have a business, I didn't have a business partner, I didn't have a husband, I didn't have a job. So, to all of a sudden be well paid and be hanging
Right.
out with film people was a huge breakthrough. But the hidden cost is was moving and not having as much time with my son as I would have liked.
Mm. Interesting, interesting. So sometimes when people reinvent themselves, they may see that they don't ap really not appreciate, but they dislike where they are at the present time, but they don't know exactly what they want to do next. Was there ever a season where your next chapter was not clear yet, but you knew that the old chapter was over?
Yes, many times. Let me tell you about one of those times. I need to back up a little bit so that it will make sense. So after my husband died, obviously I was grieving, and eventually I published a book to help other people through grief. It's called From Heartbreak to Happiness: An Intimate Diary of Healing. My hero, Wayne Dyer, endorsed it. And then that book changed everything, and it led to me launching the Grief Coach Academy. And for about a decade, my life passion was to change how people thought about and healed from grief. And I think I made a difference doing that at the Grief Coach Academy, trained people and changed the myth. It just takes time. That made me so mad when people just said, it just takes time. No, it's a process. However, after talking about grief and helping people through grief for a decade, I ran out of steam. I really didn't want my whole life to be about grief. And I hit the wall. I didn't know my business was working, it was making a difference, but I no longer felt called to do that. I felt like
Mm.
there was something else, but I didn't know what. So, did you
I
wanna say
I
something?
yes, I'm listening to you, describe this because I don't know if this is a similar situation, but when there is a ailing parent or someone home
Mhm,
and they're sick, lots of times people forget about the toll that it takes on the caregiver. So when you're
mhm.
dealing with depression and things of that nature for so long, is there a draw? Or is there a
Oh,
toll?
absolutely.
S
Caregiver burnout. Yeah,
s s
yeah. I felt like it was sort of like a transfusion, an energetic transfusion that was happening every time I was helping people, and I was glad to for a certain period of time, and then I felt like ready for the next chapter, but it
Okay.
was that kind of feeling that you described, like the what's next, And I had a serious relationship at that time. We had just broken up. So then I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I'm still running this business, but I'm not all in. It's like being in a relationship when you're got one foot out the door. It's not good for a
It's not
relationship,
good
and
for
it's
either.
definitely not good for a
No.
business. So
Yes.
so I started drinking. That was not the solution.
Okay. I'm
I
glad
then
I'm
tried.
glad you told our audience that.
Yeah, I'm sure they knew that. For a while, I like tried harder. That was not the solution. Then I thought, oh, I'll get more educated. And I got an MBA.
Mhm.
That actually was not the solution either. What was the solution was just really, it actually relates to the questions you were asking me earlier, AD. I asked myself, who is Aurora? And how can Aurora make a difference in the world? Like I'm really inspired by Buckminster Fuller, for example, who said, how can he as just one person make the biggest difference? So I asked myself that question. Anybody listening can do this or watching. Ask yourself, what are 24 things you are curious about?
Mm.
So I made a list of things I was curious about. And then I made a list of a dozen things dozen ways that I wanted to make a difference. And then when I looked at all of that list, it almost all had to do with communication and a little bit of health and fitness stuff. But it was like,
Yes.
I'm curious about stand-up comedy. I'm curious about movies. I'm curious about documentary films. I'm curious about fiction books. I'm curious about fantasy. I'm curious about nonfiction books. I'm curious about TED Talks. I'm curious, how can I help people? Then what problems I want to solve. I'm curious, how can I help people raise money for a startup? How can I help people really own their message? Like all this cluster. So it was all around communication. And I'm like, okay, I need to stop thinking, what could I do?
Mhm.
Because there was too many options for things I could do, and lean into, if God put me on this planet to do something, what is that something?
So how do
And
you differentiate? How do you pick? How do you know?
well, for me, I meditate in the morning, I ask for guidance, I journal, and I feel into it, like what feels like a you should do this, and what feels like I could do this.
Uh-huh.
And so the turning point there was really deciding to lean into, uh, the idea that I am a part of this divine, wonderful world, and
Uh-huh.
that God made this little person, Aurora, to do something great, and that how is she going to help others? And so my turning point was really deciding, if I am the light of the world in my little world, then what would be the best use of somebody like me who's got decades of experience in communication and loves coaching people and finding the gold in the story? And I realized the best use of somebody like me, or the best use of me, would be to launch thought leaders and help
Mhm.
them write books, create videos, and really claim what's unique and special about them, their business, and what they're up to. Because most people are really great at what they do, but it's not natural to also be a great communicator and also know how to use stories. So when I decided to lean into that, I decided, I'll do a little experiment. I'll give myself 90 days to see if people are interested in having me help them with their messaging, their marketing, and publishing a book. Remember, at this time, I was known as the founder of the Grief Coach Academy. It's not exactly the next thing you're going to expect. You're going to help somebody with messaging. So I had a 1 hour interview. The director of coaching at Tony Robbins had interviewed me about how to help people through grief. I'm like, would you interview me about marketing, messaging, and publishing? He's like, sure. So we did that. And it was a 1 hour interview. I turned it into this little book, Marketing Fast Track, the little book
Okay.
that launched a business. I offered it to my email list of about 12,000 at that time for free, but they paid shipping and handling. And then I offered them videos to build more know, like, and trust. And in 90 days, that little book, the Marketing Fast Track, which was based on a 1 hour interview, generated $250,000 of new business in 90 days.
So
So
people were interested in
they
hearing a,
were.
a former grief counselor or grief helper tell them how to start their business. I'm glad you brought up this
Exactly.
because I wanted to talk a little bit about the power behind your message. You speak deeply about communication. Why do you think, or why do you believe that so many intelligent people struggle with communication in a way that communication truly lands?
Well, most people don't understand the neuroscience of communication, which we could get into, bless you.
Thank you.
And most people don't. My heart bleeds for entrepreneurs and leaders who are working so hard at their business. They're, burning the midnight oil, they're working 80 hours a week, but they fail to dedicate just a couple of hours to improving their communication. And that is the missing link. That's the key that will open the door that they're bashing their head against. Let me give you a story because I like to tell stories because they make the point much more clearly.
I like to
So,
hear them.
my first business was, with my husband. We started a business, um, renting boats that were owned by other people, and then eventually we decided to sell boats because we were not making enough money renting boats to pay for the mac and cheese that we were eating all the time.
Another pivot.
Another pivot. This was an earlier pivot, but it's got a kind of a good story that addresses your question about why do smart people communicate so poorly. 'Cause, I like to think I'm smart, but at the beginning, I was a very bad communicator at some times. I was very good at writing, essays for universities, but that's not the same thing as
No,
good
no.
communication, and that's why really educated people are generally not very good communicators because 'cause they've been trained to write essays at university, which are,
It's technical.
technical and, very boring. Okay, so my husband and I were, renting and selling boats, and we were just 2 kids in our 20s. And we were not doing well. I had thought, like, I had this genius idea. I was sure it was a genius idea, but our credit card balances were not reflecting that. Credit card balances were creeping up to the max. I'm like, "Uh-oh, this is the problem." He's like, "Okay, your genius," my husband said to me, "Your genius idea, Aurora, I think it's genius, but nobody else gets it."
Nobody's getting it.
Nobody else gets it. I'm like, "Oh,
Eh,
so frustrating." And we are like on the verge that we were gonna have to shut the doors of this little
oh,
fledgling business. We're just 2 kids in our 20s. All right,
right.
so I'll give you a contrast. First, I'm gonna tell you why nobody was interested because of how I talked about it like an intelligent person, and then I'm gonna give you the 7 words that made 9, that turned it into a seven-figure business. We made $3 million in 1 week because of the 7 words. But before the 7-word breakthrough, the $1 million message, so to speak, this was the message. Okay, so my initial message to people, all excited, 20, whatever, 24-year-old Aurora. Okay, we have figured out a way for you to own a boat and put it in our charter fleet, and we'll rent it out to other people. And because of the way that Revenue Canada works, you can get a 33 and a third depreciation on your boat, except it's subject to the half-year rule in the first year. But there's also a 7% investment tax credit, and then you'll earn money from the revenue. And like
Yeah,
people are like,
yeah.
glaze
Like
over,
like
right?
like like me right now. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, too much information, too technical, and there's no emotion in it. The new message was 5 weeks of sun, fun, and tax shelter. That made people go, "What?" It's
I
like a
like
stand-up comedy line because you
yeah.
don't expect tax shelter to come after 5 weeks of sun, fun, and tax shelter, and it's talking about things that you want. You want sun,
But we
you
like
want
all
fun.
3 of those things.
5 weeks, that sounds like a nice long vacation or a couple of vacations. What's this tax shelter? Tell me more about
Mhm.
that. That message, 5 weeks of sun, fun, and tax shelter, was a $1 million message. It actually went with the idea I had was a $1 million idea. It's just only I could see it.
Right, right. It was
And
yeah.
I think a lot of really smart people are in that situation. They have something to offer. They have a great thing going, a product, a service, but until you can articulate it in about 7 words, you are probably leaving so much money on the table. Those 7 words doubled our profit margins from 12% to 24, and like I said, we signed $3 million of sales in 1 week. We also the phone was ringing. We got on radio stations called us, we were on the front cover of BC Business Magazine. Things changed completely, and the weird thing is, we then became the largest yacht dealership in Western Canada from a little company that was maybe gonna close its doors,
Right.
and the weird thing is the other companies could have copied us, but they didn't. So we
And
had a unique advantage.
And you didn't change your product, you didn't change anything. You just changed how you talked about the product or
Same
the service.
product, same team, same pricing. In fact, the pricing was able to not discount. Nothing changed except the message.
Right.
So that was another time when it was like, whoa, your message really matters. And in that case, it was $3 million. How much is that per word for 7 words, right?
That's a good ROI if you ask me.
Absolutely.
So, in your view, what is the difference between giving people information and giving them a message that they will actually remember? You had said something earlier about what was it? The stat you said about the visual in 7 seconds or something.
1.7 a video is memorable in 1.7 seconds according to Meta research.
Wow,
That's quick.
that's very quick. That's
Yeah.
very quick.
Mhm.
And sometimes we'll remember things for years that we see. I still talk to my wife about commercials from the 80s and and how, where's the beef and all this kind of stuff. And it's like
Got
we haven't
milk.
seen yeah, exactly. We haven't seen these things in decades, but the message is conveyed in such a way it sticks with the individual. I'm sure they walked away and said, 5 weeks of sun, a tax shelter. Let me look into this.
Exactly right.
Put a thinking on their mind. Now, when you say storytelling or story selling rather, what do you mean at a deeper level, and why do many people not really understand it and they get uncomfortable with the idea? Are they
I
understanding it correctly or incorrectly?
Well, I think people are trying to, do 2 things. One, either they're trying to be too brief so that there's no emotion in it, or they're trying to tell all of the facts, which is also bad. So the way that the neuroscience of communication works, let's just talk through that because I think that will help, everybody
Can
on the audience. Okay, go
Before
ahead.
you start, I wanna mention to the audience why I'm bringing this up, because what you're talking about also helps an individual who wants to start a business if they need investors, they're trying to tell people about their idea, because a lot of times people have great ideas, but they don't convey it, and so people don't get it. Because it's your
Exactly right.
vision. It's your vision. God gave you this vision, right? This is your vision, but you need to know how to sell it to get the help that you need from others. So that's why I'm asking this question. It's important that they
Yeah,
know that.
that is very important. So, in the book Turn Wind into Wealth, I go into different frameworks or models or blueprints, if you like, for powerful communication. But I can teach a couple here so that people will have something to take away right away. So, a baby step to good communication that everybody can do is a myth bust. So write down, 5 or so things that everybody knows in your industry that is actually wrong in your view, and then just bust it. Just 1 point and then bust it.
Mhm.
Not a whole story. That's pretty easy for most people to do. So for an example might be the myth is to launch as a thought leader, all you need is a book.
Mhm.
The fact is, to launch as a thought leader, you need to be a great speaker, you need to be on podcasts, you need to have a whole plan, a strategic plan that will also include a book. So make a list of what it is and then bust it. And you will find that if you're busting things that people commonly think, you will actually have attention right away. Then the
Excellent.
storytelling is a little more advanced. The myth bust, everybody can do that. Just make a list, and I'm gonna put you on the spot in a minute, AD, and see if you can bust a myth for
Okay,
us.
let's try it.
One of my favorite things is, the myth is it's too late to start a YouTube channel. The fact is it's not too late to start a YouTube channel. YouTube has 16% of all internet traffic. Right now, there's so many AI video creation tools that make video far cheaper and much more visually appealing than you could possibly imagine. There's been a huge breakthrough. Okay, so
Yes.
those are 2 examples. A story is a little bit longer than that. I've told a couple of stories, and when I tell you the structure, you'll perhaps think, "Oh, yeah, she did that structure. What do you know?" So my background's in film and television. Everybody knows the hero's journey story structure. It's Star Wars. And so what is it? It is the hero starts off as an ordinary person. They face challenge, 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 and then there's a turning point, and then they go off and do something different. So, um, we all know from this. So, for example, Luke Skywalker, he's on Tatooine. He gets the call to adventure,
Mhm.
but he ignores the call to adventure because he wants to stay on the farm with his aunt and uncle. He's not being courageous enough to step into the mission he's being invited to. But when he goes back home, he discovers his aunt and uncle have been killed, and now he cannot deny the call to adventure, and he goes off and has a whole adventure, which is very, memorable.
Mhm.
And the theme of that is shown in the final scene where he's been learning about the Force all through it, and to take down the Death Star, he has to trust the Force. And 40 years later, audiences remember Luke, taking off the artificial the AI nav, and just trusting his gut, and he makes the kill shot and blows up the Death Star and saves the world. So that's an example of a story that everybody can probably remember, or if not that movie, pick another one. So you want to have a kind of a hero's journey story structure. Start with you in an ordinary time, share a couple of challenges, and then a turning point, one turning point, and then a breakthrough. And that is memorable, and people will end up repeating your story and connecting with you. One mistake, especially smart people make, is they try to erase all of the challenges.
Mhm.
But if you think about it, the hero who's called on a quest to slay a dragon, if you just go, spotlight on hero, he picks up the sword and he kills the dragon, that's not a hero's story. There's no story there.
Mhm.
The struggle makes the story, and then you have a hero when he slays the dragon. So don't erase your struggle. And if you remember, I shared a bunch of my own struggles, right?
Yes. Now, I'm thinking that when they go on, the contestants on Shark Tank and
Uh-huh.
they pitch different things that they've invented, they talk about the struggle. They
Yes.
talk about, what happens when you do this, and they tell like a little story. So it's kinda
Yeah.
like a similar, model or blueprint.
Yeah, you could use that as a model or blueprint. Just don't erase the struggle. And especially now in the age of AI, it's very interesting. One example I like to share is the most recent Mission Impossible movie. So when Tom Cruise went on tour on TV to talk about Mission Impossible, he didn't actually talk about the plot line. He didn't talk about the budget. What he talked about was hanging from a plane that was actually, a death-defying stunt, and that he had to pause for, like, 5 minutes and have special, hand signals for the pilot because the G-force on his body was so much. And so we Tom Cruise could afford a body double. He could afford CGI, but no, he risked his life, and that's why people watch the movie,
To
and
see
that was
what
the
this
story.
Yeah, to
It
see
was
what
this
this is all about. Let's see what he did.
to see the actual risk, and
Yes.
that movie, made $350 million. So I think as entrepreneurs and leaders, it's very important for us to lean into sharing the actual risks. As long as we have the triumph and we've come through the other side, that can make your story land.
Yes. I like that. I'm gonna move to a question because I know you got a test for me, so I figure if I ask you a lot of questions, I can avoid my test.
Oh, I'm gonna ask you what's a myth you can bust, AD.
So let's see how this works. A myth that you know what? I just talked to I share a studio with another content creator,
Yeah.
and he does skits and comedy. And the myth is, doing Instagram videos or TikTok videos is easy,
Ah, okay.
but it's not. You learn editing, you have to learn this, you have to learn that. So that's a myth that's
Perfect.
that's busted. Well, that is that acceptable or
That's great. So here's the best way to do that, which more or less is what you did. So the myth is that shooting videos for TikTok or Instagram is easy. The fact is, shooting videos for TikTok or Instagram is not easy. So it helps the brain if you just do the same statement, but the opposite. And then you give a sentence or two explaining why. And the reason is because blah, blah, blah. So
Right. Okay.
when it's a myth that people commonly think, like that shooting videos for TikTok is easy, and then you confront them with shooting videos for TikTok is not easy, it can create a new neural connection in their brain
Mm-hmm.
because you've made that synapse fire. So even though it seems like kind of obvious, it is worthwhile from a stand-up comedy point of view to just say it the opposite way and then give your details of why. So
And then
you did
and then you
great, AD.
introduce your product or the reason why this is needed.
Exactly.
I've seen some kind of a camera that's on a stand that it moves when you move around the
Oh,
room.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah.
now it's so this is why you need this, and this is why we made that.
Exactly,
So I got you.
exactly.
I got you. All right, I did
Exactly,
okay.
exactly, exactly. So one of the things I do is, like, the myth is that AI can write your book for you. The fact is AI can write generic crap for you, but maybe
Right.
not your legacy book that you would be proud of, right?
Exactly. 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 And how can someone build multiple streams of income from their message without becoming scattered, transactional, and inauthentic?
Great question. Well, this is one thing that I really wanted people to know about. So, in the book Turn Words into Wealth, 7 different ways to make 7 figures as a thought leader, I outlined 7 different money models for monetizing your message. So, I think the first thing for people to do is create a brand strategy or a business strategy because it's very easy to add to a book or to a video or to a web page or to a TikTok. It's easy to add in if you have a plan a
Mhm.
little bit of I call it yeast. So before you break the
To
bread,
let it
you
grow.
add the yeast, but after the
Yes.
bread is baked, it doesn't work so well. So adding the little bit of yeast, it could be just mentioning in your book that you are a speaker or that you're a consultant or that, whatever the next thing is. So you want to bake that in. Once you've decided which of those 7 money models are a fit for you, then bake them
Then
into
that's what
whatever you're doing and just mention them every little now and again. And the way not to lose your voice, which was the second part of your question, but sorry, did you want to say something before I talk about not losing your voice?
I'm a public speaker. I'm doing what you suggested. That's all. Go ahead.
you, you have such a beautiful voice, but not talking about your authentic message. I think one of the things I really wanted to highlight and turn words into wealth is how to use AI to build your brand value, not to destroy it. So
So we're
how you
this is good because we're living in a time when almost anyone can generically create content,
Yep.
and it's tempting to, like you said, try to use AI to write a book.
Yeah.
So tell us why they should resist the urge to let AI do everything.
You should definitely resist that urge. AI is like an intern who's just fresh out of college with a PhD. So, that person or that entity has a lot of energy, has a lot of facts, but they don't have real world experience and they can sound really confident about things that are wrong. And they can really steer you off the wrong direction if you get swayed, which is so easy to get swayed by the very confident this has got like a 9 out of 10 or whatever and you're like, "Oh, okay, I'll go do that." No, 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 no. You need to be driving this. You need to be the director of your movie, of your life, of your business, and then use AI wisely after you have first done a couple of things that we can talk about. You can use it to fact check. You can use it to research. You can use it to broadcast. But if you use AI and allow it to take over the leadership, it's gonna be generic. That's will not build a brand, that will destroy one. I think 2026 and 2027 are great times to build a brand, but what is a brand? A brand is what's unique and special about you or your business or your
And
product.
AI won't allow you to stand out.
AI will not allow you to stand out. Look, AI is basically all of the data from all of the sources, even the person on Reddit who's got 14 followers, as and maybe some Harvard Business Review data and that data, all this data smunched together, it's going to give you the average of what the common person would think. The average is not what we're going for. A brand is not average. A brand takes a stand. If you are average, then hello, you're going to be competing with Walmart and with AI, and that means the lowest price will win. But
Right.
if you have developed your brand, you are unique. There's nobody else who can be you, right? You want people seeking you out by name or seeking your company out by name. So, how to do it? First, get your brand strategy clear so you know which of the 7 monetization models you are going to lean into, which ones are a good fit for your personality or your brand or your business. And then you want to lean into the 5 different things that AI can never replicate or challenge. That's your stories, your presence, your style, your vibe, who you
Yeah.
are, and your coaching or leadership skill. All those 4 things are unique to you and are a great way of building a brand. I call those the 4 human superpowers. And then the 5th thing is, what is your massively transformative purpose? Like earlier, I talked about who is Aurora and, if God put me on this planet, how would God use me for good? So answering that question and coming up with what's your massively transformative purpose, combining it with your 4 human superpowers. Now we have a brand we can build. We can gather those stories. We can gather your presence. We can get all of that really clear in a blueprint, in a book, and in a video, in podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can use AI to help broadcast it.
So those 5 points, what book can the audience find those 5? Is that in one of the books that
Yeah,
you
no, that's in Turn Words into Wealth.
Okay.
7 Ways to Make 7
S
Figures as a Thought Leader.
so
I talk about
we got the marketing book, we got this book,
yeah,
and
marketing book.
of course, we're gonna have the links to those on the YouTube, channel as well.
Yeah, Turn Words into Wealth is really about how to be the expert that AI quotes,
Mhm.
not the one it replaces.
Question for you, you kinda answered, you touched on this, definitely you did. There was a couple that's on a I guess about 2 shows ago, and they're doing movies they have an AI studio, and I
Yeah.
asked them, some very, I think, important questions because when it comes to with when it comes to AI, there has to be some stop limits as to
Mm.
what you can do. You know, your creative licenses should not allow you to do anything with AI that you just wanna do. It should be some kinda, demarcation point, in my opinion. And my question to you is, what parts of communication should never be outsourced, even in an AI-driven world? Because now your emails have you ever noticed, I don't know if you have Gmail or not, Aurora,
Mhm,
but
I do.
when you get an email and you wanna reply back, AI wants to answer for you. I'm like, "Get out of here. I don't need you answering
Yeah,
this email."
yeah,
So,
autocomplete.
yeah, so what part of communication is so important. We talked about how intelligent people have struggle with it. So what part of communication should AI never be involved in for a person, in your opinion?
Well, this whole copyright issue, is a whole big issue that's probably beyond the scope of this podcast,
Of course.
but, yeah, what should never be outsourced is what you believe, who you are, what you are a stand for, what your mission is. If you delegate to AI, I don't know, you might be a Christian and pretty soon before you know it, they're saying things that are not in alignment with the Bible. Or you're Jewish and they're saying things that are not in alignment with your beliefs. Not doesn't matter what, I'm not picking on any particular religion, but
It'll
first you
ma
need to,
it can misrepresent you.
it can misrepresent you. However, once you have your message clear, you can use AI to broadcast it,
Got
right?
you.
But I review everything that my team puts out.
Yes. So
The
basically, you provide the skeleton and you allow AI to provide some flesh and
Yeah,
stuff
you
like that,
can
but
use
you
AI to make an image to go with that post or
yeah.
whatever. I actually really am enjoying I write scripts for our, Anna Zest series, which is based on my fantasy books because 'cause I've also written a trilogy of young adult fantasy books, Magic, Mystery of the Multiverse, and
I
then
got some questions about that too.
okay,
A couple of
and
questions about that.
for fun, we're using AI video creation tools, or my team is, to pick out some scenes from the book and turn them into like a 2-minute, like a movie trailer. So
Okay.
they're very short, but it's really fun to see what AI can do.
Yes.
And I am having fun with that because it's entertainment. So it's if it says slightly different words from what's in the book, that's okay with me.
Mhm.
It might not be okay with J.K. Rowling, but it's okay with me. Wow, that's fun. Okay, let's go with that. And I obviously approve everything before it goes live. So I think this is a very interesting thing to explore. And I think all of us need to check our hearts for what do we really care about and not delegate anything that would misrepresent you so that you don't end
Yes.
up like a certain person saying, "Oh, no, that was a doctor actually in that image."
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, you have to be
You know what I
careful.
mean?
I understand exactly what you're talking about. So what do you think people are most at risk of losing when they focus too much on speed, scale, and automation, especially when it comes to the early stages of their businesses? You've done a lot of stuff. You've written, you've worked with film companies, and sometimes people just want to get stuff going. What do they risk when they try to speed things up?
There's 2 huge risks. 1, the AI is overconfident and wrong, and so you can get because at the early stage, you're like, "It could go this way, it could go this way, it could go this way." So it's, important to check if you've got product market fit with real people with real credit cards.
Yeah.
You don't so for using my example of when I pivoted from the Grief Coach Academy to helping people with their books, their marketing, and their messaging, I did a 90-day test, and I invite people who are starting a business or pivoting or adding a new product or service or starting a new business. How can you do a 90-day test that will give you a result with actual real living human beings investing at least some money. So even the amount that people paid for shipping and handling of the book was free. They got a print book, not an ebook,
Mhm.
but they did pay for the shipping and handling. That's a vote for, oh, I'm interested in this.
Yes,
And
definitely.
then, people did sign up for the various things and the $250,000 or 250,000 votes for, yes, we would like your help with messaging, marketing, and media. So just asking your mother or your friends
It's not a
is
true
an echo
barometer.
chamber. Yeah. And AI can be very sycophantant. Sycophantant. That's hard to say. It can tell you what you want to hear,
Right. Okay.
right?
Yeah, you're right. It'll sometimes it'll go up down the same road of thought that you're already inputting into
Yeah.
the AI. Yeah. So before you go, we're going to wrap this up pretty soon, but let's talk about your creativity. You've written many books. You've written fiction and nonfiction. You're also known for business strategy books, but you stepped into the fiction world. What did writing fiction allow you to express that nonfiction writing did not?
Well, see, this is another example of a pivot. So earlier in our call, I had talked about being moved by C.S. Lewis at the age of 9 and deciding to become a word wizard like C.S. Lewis at the age of 9. So the little 9-year-old Aurora promised herself that she would write a book like the Narnia series because it was so wonderful. And then 50-year-old Aurora went, "Well, what about those books? You haven't written them yet." And so it was a lifelong dream. So I invite everyone, like, what's in your heart that you haven't done yet? Because you don't have forever. And while you've got, some juju going on, you've got some energy, you got some life force, be sure to do those things that matter.
Yes.
And so it mattered to me to honor my 9-year-old's dream. Actually, this is the trilogy. The third book in the trilogy is number 1 on Amazon today in its category, which is pretty darn
Congratulations.
pretty darn cool. And so this is my hobby. I'm not expecting this book to make a bunch of money, although BBC did express interest in turning it into a TV series. But interest is not money in the bank. So, and I think that's also a good thing to lean into, that you can have projects that are part of your hobby. But if it's your business, then have a business plan. So helping people, write books, create videos, get clear on their brand message. That's what I do as part of my business. I'm a brand showrunner. I like the word showrunner. I'm sure you know what
Showrunner.
that means.
Yes,
The
yes.
showrunner, the
One of my
showrunner, and
one of my favorite showrunners is oh, my mind just went blank, but yeah, he does Yellowstone, he does
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
um he does Tulsa King. I can't think of his name. He's here in Texas. He has the 4 6s wrench.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah, I know what a showrunner
amazing.
is. I like that
Yeah,
word. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Taylor
So a show
Sheridan. Taylor Sheridan.
Taylor Sheridan,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So I do that, but for brands.
Okay.
Let's get clear on your message. Let's have the movie trailer mindset to grab attention fast, but then let's have a plan for a whole season of messages
Yes.
that you can share in the
So
in.
no, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, no, go ahead.
When the story of your life and work is viewed from a distance, what do you hope people say Aurora Winter really helped others to do?
Oh, I get chills with this question, actually. So, one of my heroes, Buckminster Fuller, talked about, well, on his gravestone, it says, "Call me trim tab." And a trim tab is a small little rudder. It's a mini rudder on the rudder of a freighter. But in order to
Okay.
turn the big rudder, you turn the little rudder first.
Really?
And you turn the little rudder, which is called a trim tab, and then that turns the big rudder, and then that can turn the entire huge freighter. So
Wow.
I would love to be that trim tab because
Okay.
I believe and intend that my work helping to launch thought leaders, that they're the big rudder, changing the trajectory of their business, their part of the world that they are intent on making a difference. But when I act as that trim tab, helping them clarify their message, write books, create videos, I would love to be seen and acknowledged as that person who helped them make a bigger difference by helping them get clear on their $1,000,000 message.
That's an excellent answer, Aurora. I'm gonna look that up. I like that. I like that. Because a friend of mine, he says it's difference between being seen and being noticed.
Mhm.
So you don't always have to be out there in the front, but people know who you are because you help them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I like that. So please tell everyone that's listening and watching where they could find more things that you have done and more and learn more about you.
All right, cool. Well, if you've been listening to this and thinking, hey, maybe I want to launch as a thought leader, I have a fast, fun, and totally free readiness assessment. So you can find out if you're ready to launch as a thought leader right now. And if not, you can find out what might be stopping you. And if so, you can find out what your next best step might be. And that free readiness to launch as a thought leader quiz is at thoughtleaderlaunch.com. Thoughtleaderlaunch.com. It's totally free and fun. This book, Turn Words into Wealth 7 Ways to Make Seven Figures as a Thought Leader, is available wherever books are sold. So I highly recommend that you read this book and find out more about messaging. It's got the blueprints for various kinds of communication, so you can just fill in the blank. It comes with a free workbook, and you can get that wherever books are sold. And if you like it, please leave a review. And then if you want to find out more about working with me, you can go to samepagepublishing.com, and you can even sign up for a complimentary business breakthrough call at bookcall.biz. Bookcall.biz.
Excellent, excellent. Aurora, this was a really thoughtful conversation. I appreciate the way you connect communication and the importance you put on it. The way you talk about story and business and humanity in a time when much of the world is moving so fast, everyone sounds the same. It's
Yep.
very refreshing. I appreciate that. Now, thanks again for joining me here on Ingleside Reviews Innovators Unveiled. And please be sure to follow, subscribe, and rate Ingleside Reviews Innovators Unveiled, now streaming on Bravehearts TV, YouTube, and all major podcast platforms. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, and never stop unveiling the innovator in you. I'm your host, A.D. Edwards, signing off.
This has been Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled, hosted by A.D. Edwards. For more conversations with innovators and business professionals, follow the show on your favorite podcast app, subscribe on YouTube, watch on the Bravehearts TV network, and visit innovatorsunveiled.com to learn more about the show and upcoming guests.